that will define the Power universe for decades, brotherhood forged in chaos and blood. Kanan's role continues to loom large, though he is quieter than before. Episode 1 shows him allowing situations to escalate just enough to see how James and Tommy respond under pressure. Kanan's eyes are everywhere, measuring loyalty, testing strength, and noting intelligence. Every mistake, hesitation, or triumph is a lesson that will echo throughout both their lives. The trailer hints at a small but terrifying revelation. Kanan is not just training them to survive, he is shaping them to become something he may eventually fear. And this is the first time we see James understanding that Kanan is both a mentor and a threat. The episode also deepens the introduction of secondary characters who will play pivotal roles later. Jill Wexler begins to challenge Tommy in ways that unsettle him, showing that not everyone can be dominated by force. Lenny Siddell and J-Bugs provide support in the streets, but their loyalty will be tested, and Episode 1 teases cracks in these alliances that could have disastrous consequences. The detectives introduced earlier continue their patient surveillance, moving silently like shadows across Queens, their presence a constant reminder that no one, no matter how careful, can escape scrutiny forever. Emotionally, Episode 1 is relentless. James is forced to confront loss, trust, and the cost of survival all at once. Each decision, even the smallest, comes with consequences that feel immediate and unavoidable. This episode does not just tell the audience that the Power universe is dangerous, it makes us feel it, as if every choice we see James make could just as easily fall on us. Ghost is being forged not in spectacle, but in the quiet, relentless pressure of the streets, mentorship, and morality pushed to its limit. The first episode also subtly hints at future conflicts, especially regarding revenge. The people responsible for James's father's death remain shadows at this point, but Episode 1 plants seeds of anger, justice, and inevitability. It is a reminder that Ghost's journey is not merely about ambition, it is about settling old scores, surviving new threats, and discovering the lengths he will go to protect what he values, or destroy what stands in his way. As Section 8 nears its close, the tension escalates with an almost invisible but suffocating pressure. Every character's motives are now in motion, every choice is weighted, and every action foreshadows the challenges that will define the Power universe for years to come. The episode leaves us with an undeniable truth. Ghost is no longer just a boy, and Tommy is no longer just a friend. The streets, Kanan, and even law enforcement have set the stage for the rise of legends and monsters. And as the first episode concludes, one final question pierces the tension, leaving the audience on edge. When the first real betrayal comes, and it will, who will survive it, and who will become the monster the world already fears Ghost to be? Power Origins Episode 1 pushes us into the most unsettling realization yet. The transformation we are watching is no longer in progress, it is already happening. By this point, James St. Patrick is not questioning the world he is in anymore. He is accepting it, and that acceptance is far more dangerous than fear. Episode 1 shows us that once a person stops hoping for a way out, they start building a way up. James begins thinking in terms of leverage, not just who has power now, but who will have power tomorrow. He observes how Kanan controls people without constantly reminding them who he is. He notices how silence can command more respect than threats. These lessons sink in fast. James is no longer impressed by violence. He understands it as a tool, not a solution. This mindset separates him from almost everyone around him, including Tommy. Tommy feels the shift even if he cannot name it. Episode 1 shows him becoming restless, almost uneasy, as James grows more distant and composed. Tommy still believes problems are meant to be confronted head-on. James believes problems should be redirected until they disappear on their own. This difference creates a quiet tension between them, one that is not fueled by anger but by misunderstanding. They still trust each other completely, but they are starting to speak different languages. Tommy, however, reaches a breaking point. The emotional cost of this world finally catches up to him, and Episode 1 makes us feel his confusion and anger. He senses that James is pulling away, becoming harder to read, harder to reach. The brotherhood that once felt unbreakable now feels strained by unspoken truths. Tommy still believes in loyalty above all else, But he is starting to realize that loyalty alone does not protect you from being left behind. Kanan watches this divide with interest, not concern. Episode 1 reveals that this separation is not accidental, it is useful. Kanan understands that power thrives when people are dependent, uncertain, and divided. James's intelligence and Tommy's rage are being sharpened for different purposes, and neither of them fully sees how they are being positioned. This realization hits hardest when James begins anticipating Kanan's moves before they happen, proving that the student is learning faster than expected. The episode also circles back to the idea of legacy. James starts thinking long-term, not just about survival, but about permanence. He wants to build something that cannot be taken from him the way his father's life was. This motivation is quiet but dangerous. Episode 1 shows that Ghost's future empire is not rooted in greed but in fear of loss. And fear, when combined with intelligence, creates something unstoppable. As the final moments unfold, the episode delivers its most chilling truth. The world James and Tommy are entering does not care about intentions. It only rewards results, and James has proven that he can deliver them. The camera lingers on his calm expression, contrasting sharply with the chaos around him, making it clear that this calm is not peace. It is acceptance. The episode ends without giving us comfort because Power Origins does not want to comfort us. It wants to warn us. Ghost and Tommy are no longer boys caught in bad circumstances. They are becoming architects of a future soaked in consequences. And as episode 1 fades out, one final question hangs over everything. Now that Ghost has taken his first real step into power, will the man James St. Patrick ever be able to survive the legend he is becoming? Power Origins. Episode 1 does not truly end when the screen fades to black. It lingers in the mind because the final implications of what we have just witnessed are far bigger than a single episode. By this point, James is no longer reacting to the world around him. He is beginning to shape it. This section focuses on the quiet aftermath of his transformation, where the most dangerous changes happen without violence or noise. James starts understanding something that separates leaders from followers. Fear is temporary, but control is permanent. Episode 1 makes it clear that he is already thinking beyond Kanan, beyond corners, beyond survival. His mind is now focused on systems, patterns, and weaknesses. He watches how people move, who hesitates, who lies, and who panics. Every detail becomes useful. This is the foundation of the Ghost who will one day stay 10 steps ahead of everyone chasing him. Tommy, meanwhile, struggles to adjust to this new reality. The streets still make sense to him when things are loud and direct, but James's silence confuses him. Episode 1 shows Tommy questioning not just the world, but his place in it. He feels loyalty pulling him in one direction and instinct pulling him in another. This inner conflict is dangerous because uncertainty makes people predictable, and predictable people do not survive long in this world. Kanan's presence looms heavier than ever in this section. He begins giving fewer instructions and asking more questions, letting James reveal how far his thinking has gone. Episode 1 subtly suggests that Kanan may already be considering whether Ghost is a future asset or a future threat. This shift is critical. The moment a mentor starts evaluating you as competition, the clock starts ticking. And James seems to sense that time is no longer on his side. The larger power universe begins aligning around this realization. Names, faces, and forces we recognize start to feel closer, as if destiny itself is narrowing in. Episode 1 hints that every major conflict we have seen in Power was set in motion by decisions made right here, in moments that felt small at the time. A favor owed, a silence kept, a line crossed without witnesses. These are the building blocks of empires and funerals. Emotionally, James becomes harder to reach than ever. He stops explaining his choices, even to himself. He convinces himself that clarity is strength and doubt is weakness. Episode 1 makes us understand that Ghost is not a mask James puts on later in life. It is armor he starts building now. And once armor hardens, it is nearly impossible to remove without breaking what is underneath. As this section closes, the weight of inevitability settles in. The path ahead is no longer uncertain. It is defined. Power Origins Episode 1 leaves us standing at the edge of something much bigger than a simple origin story. By this point, the episode has quietly done its real job. It has shown us that Ghost was never created by one single tragedy or one single mentor. He was shaped by pressure, isolation, and the realization that intelligence without control is useless. James now understands that the world does not reward good intentions. It rewards preparation. This section deepens the sense of inevitability surrounding James's transformation. He starts moving differently, speaking less, and observing more. Episode 1 shows that people around him are beginning to feel it, even if they cannot explain why. Conversations stop when he listens. Deals feel heavier when he is present. This is the moment where Ghost's presence becomes felt before his name ever exists. Power is no longer something James wants. It is something people begin to sense in him. Tommy's internal conflict becomes impossible to ignore. He still trusts James with his life, but he no longer understands him. Episode 1 frames this distance as tragic rather than hostile. Tommy believes brotherhood means standing side by side no matter what. James is starting to believe brotherhood means doing what needs to be done, even if it means standing alone. This difference in belief is subtle now, but it is deadly in the long run. Kanan's influence remains constant, but shifts in tone. He no longer needs to push James forward. He lets him move on his own. Episode 1 suggests that Kanan knows exactly what he is doing. He is watching to see whether Ghost will remain loyal or whether he will eventually become something that cannot be controlled. This unspoken tension hangs over every scene, making their interactions feel like a chess match instead of mentorship. The streets continue responding to the rise of these two young players. Word spreads, respect grows, fear follows. Episode 1 makes it clear that success attracts attention from every direction, including the kind you do not want. Enemies are forming quietly, and law enforcement is adjusting its focus. James senses this shift before anyone else, already thinking about exits, fallbacks, and contingencies. He is preparing for wars that have not started yet. Emotionally, the episode becomes colder. Not because James has lost his feelings, but because he has learned how dangerous they can be. He remembers his father, he remembers loss, and he convinces himself that attachment leads to weakness. This mindset feels logical, even justified, which is what makes it terrifying. Ghost is not born from cruelty, he is born from caution. As Section 7 reaches its end, Power Origins Episode 1 leaves us with a chilling sense of direction. The foundation has been laid, the players are in position, and the path ahead is no longer a mystery but a warning. Everything that comes next will be built on the choices made here. Because now that James understands how power truly works, the most dangerous question of all remains unanswered. When the time comes to choose between love, loyalty, and control, which one will Ghost sacrifice first? Power Origins Episode 1 does something most origin stories fail to do. It makes the audience feel the weight of every decision before the consequences even arrive. By this stage, James St. Patrick is no longer simply reacting. He is calculating, observing, and preparing for a future that is already taking shape around him. Every interaction, every glance, and every silent decision begins to ripple outward, affecting not just him and Tommy, but the world they are about to inherit. Episode 1 shows us that the streets are a living, breathing entity, one that watches, judges, and punishes without mercy. Tommy, in contrast, is moving through these same streets like a storm. His energy is explosive, raw, and unfiltered, which draws attention for all the wrong reasons. Episode 1 emphasizes the dangerous balance between James's strategic silence and Tommy's emotional instinct. Together, they are unstoppable, but only if they can survive each other as much as their enemies. The episode teases moments where Tommy's impulsiveness clashes with James's calculated approach, hinting at fractures that could grow into lifelong rifts. And yet, in those same moments, we feel the bond theory. Tommy feels the shift even if he cannot name it. Episode 1 shows him becoming restless, almost uneasy as James grows more distant and composed. Tommy still believes problems are meant to be confronted head-on. James believes problems should be redirected until they disappear on their own. This difference creates a quiet tension between them, one that is not fueled by anger but by misunderstanding. They still trust each other completely, but they are starting to speak different languages. The streets continue responding to this change, and respect begins to follow James without him asking for it. People start adjusting their tone around him, Deals feel heavier, promises feel more serious. Episode 1 makes it clear that reputation forms faster than intention. James never asks to be feared, but fear arrives anyway. And once fear enters the equation, everything changes. Kanan watches this evolution carefully. Episode 1 subtly suggests that Kanan now sees two possible futures. In one, James becomes his most valuable asset. In the other, he becomes his greatest mistake. Kanan does not interfere because interference would reveal concern. Instead, he creates space and waits. This waiting is dangerous because it means James is being judged not on loyalty, but on potential. Law enforcement continues tightening its invisible net. The detectives are no longer guessing, they are narrowing focus. Episode 1 shows how small details begin to align into patterns that cannot be ignored. James senses this shift before anyone else. He starts thinking about distance, misdirection, and insulation. These thoughts are not driven by panic, they are driven by clarity. And clarity in this world often arrives just before catastrophe. Emotionally, James becomes quieter than ever, not empty, but controlled. He remembers his father, his loss, and the injustice that shaped him. But instead of letting that pain consume him, he repurposes it. Episode 1 shows us that Ghost's strength is not that he feels less. It is that he learns how to use what he feels without letting it use him. As this section reaches its end, the episode delivers its most haunting message. Everyone around James believes they are shaping him. Kanan thinks he is molding a successor. The streets think they are raising another player. The law thinks it is watching another criminal rise. But James is shaping himself quietly and deliberately. And if this is only the beginning of Ghost learning how to control his own destiny, the most terrifying question of all still remains. When James finally decides he no longer needs anyone above him, who will be the first person standing in his way? Power Origins Episode 1 now reaches the point where the story stops feeling like an origin and starts feeling like a warning. By this stage, James St. Patrick is no longer simply adapting to the environment around him. He is beginning to understand how environments are controlled. Episode 1 makes it clear that power is not taken all at once. It is claimed quietly, piece by piece, until no one remembers a time before you had it. James starts recognizing weakness in places others overlook. Not physical weakness, but emotional and psychological cracks. He notices who needs approval, who craves respect, and who fears being replaced. These observations do not come from cruelty, they come from survival. Episode 1 shows James learning that understanding people is far more dangerous than intimidating them. This is where Ghost's future reputation truly begins to take shape. Tommy, meanwhile, begins to sense that his role is changing. He is still respected, still feared, still trusted,